Hey guys, I picked up my Oculus Quest 2 last week, and I've been making some notes with my thoughts about it, so I just wanted to go over those with you real quick. So what you get in the box, you just get the headset, you get two controllers with the batteries pre-installed, you get a USB-C to USB-C cable for charging, and a 10-watt 2-amp charger brick. They sell a case, an Elite strap with a battery built in, a fitment kit, etc. on the website as far as accessories go. And the Quest 2 is kind of marketed in the middle of Oculus's product line as their all-in-one VR experience. It has an onboard Android system. There's no built-in headphones, but there's a headphone jack, and it has little speakers that are built into the front of the head straps, which sound fine to me. It has a Qualcomm Snapdragon XR2 system on a chip. Developers get access to 3 processor cores, and the chipset does come with Wi-Fi 6, 6 gigabytes of memory, 1832 by 1920 pixel LCD display per eye, capable of 90 hertz. So there's caveats to those last two specs. So first of all, the original Oculus Quest featured an OLED screen. So if you're not aware, basically with an OLED display, you can have much darker blacks because each pixel creates its own light. Unlike with an LCD, where you have to light up the entire screen if you want to show a bright spot over in the corner, for example. So it really only comes up in very dark scenes. The dark areas might be kind of hard to see. They might look kind of washed out. The contrast might seem a little lower. The black level seems a little higher. I noticed it when I was playing Vader Immortal. It just is a little less immersive. However, it is worth saying that all of the big VR headsets now, even if they previously had OLEDs, are switching to LCDs. Apparently, LCDs have other features such as, the higher pixel density and resolution and refresh rate that are going to be advantageous in the future, so they're all switching to LCDs now. So it's hard to hold this against Oculus. Some people also say that LCDs technically have a higher resolution because the 3 red, green, and blue subpixels are arranged in a square grid that are tightly packed versus OLED subpixels that have different numbers of red, green, and blue subpixels, and they're not in a square grid. So the same resolution they were saying might look a little sharper on an LCD. I don't really know if I agree with that, but then there's the refresh rate. So most PC VR headsets run at 90 hertz. So the OG Oculus Rift is 90 hertz, HTC Vive and Vive Cosmos are 90 hertz. The Rift S is actually 80 hertz. And the Valve Index actually comes in ahead at 120 hertz, but it's also $1,000. The original Oculus Quest was actually 72 hertz, and so the whole Android VR ecosystem that they built around it is obviously made to run at 72 hertz. So all the games and stuff were originally designed for 72 hertz. Oculus had announced before the Quest 2 came out that the Quest 2 would do 90 hertz, but apparently due to some type of software glitch or bug, they weren't really able to make that happen on day one. So when you take it out of the box, it's set to 72 hertz, and you have to go into the advanced options, and you can turn on 90 hertz support. I haven't noticed any bugs or anything from this, but I guess they're saying that that's a possibility. And I've noticed that probably about half of the games I've downloaded from the Oculus Store have been updated to support 90 hertz. But at the same time, I will say I wasn't really able to tell much of a difference between the 72 hertz titles and the 90 hertz titles. I'm able to tell the difference between 60 FPS and 100 FPS on my 100 hertz monitor for PC, but without a direct A/B comparison between 72 and 90 hertz, I couldn't really tell much of a difference. And I'm just using that to tell you that it's not like you're going to feel sick or it's going to look blurry or anything if you play at 72 hertz. I wouldn't worry about it. The included facial interface and the strap, they're pretty basic. The straps are just like white, thin elastic straps, and the top has a Velcro strap on it. And the facial interface is just black, like spongy foam, and there's no nose gate. So if you look down, if your room is lit up, you can kind of see some light down in front of your nose. But of course, Oculus will sell you a much nicer imitation leather face interface with a nose gate for an additional $30. Compared to the original Oculus Quest, which came out in May of last year, the new Oculus Quest 2 is $100 cheaper. It has 50% more RAM, has the faster processor, higher resolution displays, faster refreshing screens, larger storage available as an option, and it's still 68 grams lighter than last year's model. The original Oculus Quest was only available in black, and the Quest 2 is only available in white. The new model is also lighter than most of the standalone PC VR headsets. So it's lighter than the Valve Index, it's lighter than the HTC Vive Cosmos, and it's lighter than either model of the standalone Oculus Rift, while it also provides higher resolutions than most of these as well. The other major difference between the Quest and most of the standalone PC VR headsets is the tracking method. So all of the OG and some of the current PC VR headsets out there used wired USB tracker cameras that you have to set up in your room, and they basically look to triangulate the location of the headset. But the Quest actually works with inside-out tracking. So instead of having trackers that track the location of the Quest has cameras built in, and it tracks how the room moves as you move to determine its own location without any external trackers required. And it works flawlessly. And this makes the device much more accessible because it can be cheaper because they don't have to include these USB trackers. It can be totally independent of a PC because it does the tracking on its own. It doesn't have to rely on a PC to track its location. And it's totally independent where you play. You can play in any room without having to set up any trackers in it. However, there is one con to this tracking method, and that is because it's using onboard cameras, it is dependent upon there being some amount of light in the room you're in. It'll work in dark rooms, but it won't work in very dark rooms, like pitch black or very, very dark rooms. It'll just pop up and say tracking has been lost. The upside to that is there's really no trailing off of tracking accuracy as it gets darker. It just works totally perfectly until it cuts off and tracking's totally gone. So that's good because that way it doesn't have like reduced tracking quality or make you sick if you're playing like in a darker room. It's either going to work perfectly or it's going to tell you it's not going to work at all. It's not a big deal if you ask me, because if you turn the light on in your room, even if you like usually playing in the dark, if you turn the light on in your room, you're not going to see the light anyway because you're going to be in VR. So it's fine if you ask me. So onto the software. As I said, the headset has an Android system on board, and you can pair it up to the Oculus app on your phone to manage the software and the settings, or you can do it locally on the headset. There's a built-in web browser, app store, social app with a friends list and chats. You have the ability to save local screenshots of your VR experiences as well as local videos. And Quest 2 also supports casting live video from your headset. So you can cast to the Oculus app on your phone. You can cast to a web browser that's logged into your Oculus account or any local Chromecast device. So I've used that where, for example, I wanted my mom to try out VR. So I went over to her house, went in her living room. She put the VR headset on, and I pulled out my phone, and I was able to cast from the headset to my phone so I could walk her through the tutorial, and I could see what she was looking at, I could see what she was doing and what she was pointing at without any additional hardware required. So that was super great. And for example, if you have friends over and you all want to check out the VR, one person can put on the headset, and then you can cast the video from the headset to your Chromecast in your living room TV, and everyone can watch the TV and see what's going on, so that way you're all kind of in on the same thing. And of course, because Oculus is a Facebook product, you can broadcast directly to Facebook from the headset, and you can view the live chat from the Facebook people and reactions, and it's all very well integrated with Facebook, okay? Trust me. You can navigate the operating system using just the right controller or just the left controller or both controllers without a problem. But the Quest 2 also has this cool feature where it has full finger and hand tracking. So if you don't have any of the controllers picked up, you can just reach out in front of you and you'll see your hands appear in VR. And there's gestures, so you can, of course, point. You can pinch and drag to scroll. You can pinch to select. And if you turn your hand to face you, there's gestures for the menu button and Oculus button. And it actually works really great. It's just that not a lot of third-party apps support it. So outside of the OS itself, there's not a lot of support for hand tracking. So as you can imagine, while you're wearing the VR headset, you can't see your position within your actual room. So all these VR headsets have a way of keeping you in a safe spot. On some of them, you get a cylinder of a specific size around you, around your designated center location. And if you start to reach out, it'll give you some type of warning. But the Quest 2's implementation is very, very good. It's called the Guardian system. So they walk you through setting it up initially, as well as anytime you move to a new area that it doesn't recognize. But you basically set the floor level by reaching down and touching the floor. And then you either select a stationary mode, which puts a cylinder around your fixed location, like I was saying, or you can pick room scale. And when you pick room scale, you see the pass-through cameras. So you see a black and white, video. You can look around the room, and you use your hand or the controller, and you draw a line on the floor. You draw a shape on the floor. It doesn't have to be a circle. It doesn't have to be square. But you can just draw around any obstacles in your room, connect the circle, and then that is your Guardian boundary. So it memorizes that. And then if you get too close to that line that you drew, it'll start to fade in this grid, so you know you're getting close to one side of the Guardian boundary. You can reach through the grid if you need to. It'll let you. You can reach through if you need to do something in a game to reach through the grid. You can do it. It's just letting you know that that's where the boundary is that you marked. And then if you stick your head all the way out of the grid, it'll actually fade in those pass-through cameras again, so you can pop out of the Guardian area, look, see in your room what's going on. You can get back. If you walk all the way out of the Guardian area, that's a way to be able to make your way back into the Guardian area without having to take your headset off. There's also a shortcut where you can double tap on the side of the headset to switch directly to the pass-through cameras, and then double tap to go back into VR. So that's super helpful. Of course, it comes pre-installed with a Getting Started app that shows you how to use the controllers. The Oculus Touch controllers are really great. There's 2 face buttons on each one, the menu button, the Oculus button. There's thumbsticks on each one. There's finger triggers and grip triggers on each one. So that gives you the full ability to point, to grab, to thumbs up, all that stuff. The only complaint I have about them is they hold onto your wrist with a wrist strap like a Wiimote. So if you're holding the controller and you drop it, it'll fall and just be dangling by your wrist. So if you want to do an open hand gesture, you can really only do the open hand gesture with your palm facing up because the controller will sit in your palm. If you do an open palm facing down, you'll drop the controller. So I really prefer the aftermarket straps for these controllers that strap around the back of your palm and hold the controller into your palm. That way you can do any gesture you want, including an open palm gesture with the controller down without a problem. All the software on the Quest also supports these controllers very well. Even in Steam VR and PC VR scenarios, I haven't come across a single game that doesn't fully support the controllers exactly the way you would think so. So let's compare the 3 different ways that you can play games on the Oculus Quest 2. So I'm going to talk about Beat Saber because this is a game that you can play in any of these 3 ways. But the easiest way would be to buy it on the Oculus Store on your headset, and you can play it on the headset's built-in Android system. So by doing that, you get full 90 hertz refresh rate. You can play at the full resolution of the screens, and because the game's been updated for Quest 2 on the App Store, it's great. It's very easy. Takes no setup, no wires. The video is perfectly crisp, no compression. The only consideration that you have to think about is battery life. The Quest 2 will last about 2 hours from a full charge. I've heard that some people would keep a USB-C battery bank in their pocket and run a charging cable up to the headset, and that way you get a much longer battery life. And it's still not as intrusive as running a cable to a PC or anything because, of course, the cable will move with you as you turn and move in space. But, of course, Oculus would prefer that you buy their Elite strap with the battery built in for $129. The next option is what they call Oculus Link, or what I like to call connecting the headset to your PC with a USB cable. The Quest 2 does come with a USB-C to USB-C cable that does support data transfer, but it's only 1 meter long, so you're not going to really be able to use this for VR gameplay. You can just use it for side-loading apps and transferring files. But, of course, Oculus will be happy to sell you a 16-foot USB-C to USB-C cable for $79 specifically for this purpose. And while $79 for a USB cable sounds pretty extreme, I will defend Oculus in this instance because they spared no expense on this cable, and I don't think you can get a similar cable for less money. So if you think about it, USB 3.0 cables, which are required to use this headset on a PC, have 8 signal conductor wires, as well as anywhere from 1 to 4 ground conductors. So we're talking about maybe 12 wires inside this cable. And the longer the cable, the thicker the conductors have to be to ensure the signal quality isn't degraded. That's why maybe you've noticed that super long HDMI cables or super long USB cables are usually thicker. So the only way to get around this, the only way to not have a super heavy, annoyingly, thick and rigid cable for this is they're using optical converters on each end. So in each end of the cable, they convert those 8 signal conductors into an optical light signal, and you have an optical strand going each way, plus the 2 power conductors, and that's all that's in there. So the wire is very thin and flexible and light. It's a very nice cable. Anyway, so now that we're past the cable, if you plug the Quest 2 into your PC, you download the Oculus software, you can use the Quest 2 just like a PC VR headset, just like an Oculus Rift. You can play PC-exclusive VR titles on the Oculus Store or on Steam VR. It works basically flawlessly, no lag, no latency. However, there are a couple of asterisks. These are big. Firstly, the USB connection is being used as a data connection, not a USB-C display connection. As such, the video has to be compressed and encoded to be sent this way, because you also have to have data stream for the controllers and the tracking from the headset to go back to the PC. So that compressed video doesn't look quite as sharp as the native video for playing games on the headset, because they're using a real quick and dirty encoder so that it doesn't require a very strong PC to do the video encoding. It doesn't create a lot of load. I've heard that the video stream is about 500 megabits per second. I imagine that this could be increased because USB 3.0 supports 5,000 megabits per second, but I don't know whether the USB chip or the SoC on the headset itself could handle a higher bitrate video stream than 500 megabits per second. That's a pretty high bitrate video stream as is, but who knows? I've also seen talk online that the Oculus Link software for PC is limited to the original video resolution of the Quest 1, so the signal being sent to the Quest 2 is like 75% of the actual screen resolution, then it's being stretched up to fit the display on the Quest 2, so that makes it also look a little softer, so the video is just not quite as sharp. But the bigger issue currently is that the Oculus Link is limited to the 72 hertz refresh rate of the original Quest. There is no way to do 90 hertz wired Oculus Link, rather. There is no way currently to get 90 hertz over wired Oculus Link with this headset. So that's kind of a bummer, considering 90 hertz was a big selling point for this headset for a lot of people. Whether this will be updated to support 90 hertz remains to be disclosed as far as I know. But the big benefits of the wired method, of course, are the direct latency-free connection and not having to be concerned with battery life because, of course, it'll stay charged up the whole time. But, of course, even with the soft video concerns aside, playing with a wire, as I found out, is just kind of a drag because you always have to be constantly aware of where the wire is. It kind of takes you out of the immersion because if you think about a game like Half-Life Alyx, maybe I walk down this hallway, maybe I turn left, maybe I walk down that hallway, maybe I look in a door to my left, maybe I go in, maybe there's an enemy over here, there's an item over here, maybe I reach down and grab this, maybe I reach over here and do this. If it's wireless, you can stay right in the game and you are where you think you are. But with a wire, you're either getting tangled up or you have to keep in your subconscious an awareness of where the front is relative to where you are so you can keep the wire right. And it's not ideal, but this doesn't have anything to do with the Quest 2. That's just how PC VR is right now. So the third and final way to play is not actually officially sanctioned by Oculus, but you can buy this app on the Oculus App Store for $20 called Virtual Desktop. So the advertised use case of this app is that you can wirelessly interact with your PC from a VR environment. So maybe I want to go in the living room, or maybe I'm across town. It doesn't matter. But there's this server software you put on your PC, and then you can start the app on your Oculus Quest, and you can interact with your desktop virtually. So, if you want to sit in an environment that's like a desk, you can do that. But if you want to sit in an environment where you're looking at your PC display in a theater or the USS Enterprise or whatever, there's all these environments where you can interact with your PC. And that's what they're selling this software as. But the real reason most people use it is the additional perk of having a mode that will fool your PC into thinking that it is a locally connected VR headset. So you can enable that mode, and you can fire up Steam VR and play your favorite PC VR games anywhere you have Wi-Fi, fully untethered. The latency you might be worried about because now it's over Wi-Fi, but in my experience, it's virtually non-existent. Now, granted, I have a very good Wi-Fi connection with no congestion. There's not anybody that lives particularly close to me. If you have Wi-Fi 6, you'll have an even better experience. I don't have Wi-Fi 6, but Wi-Fi 6 is supposed to have lower latency, so you can really get a good experience this way. And since the Virtual Desktop app is running as an app on the headset itself, you don't have those limitations that you do with Oculus Link. So it can run at 90 hertz. It can run at full resolution. The only downside is, because it's running over the Wi-Fi chipset, you can't do a 500 megabit per second video stream. So it actually limits it to 150 megabits per second. And in order to make that video not look like garbage, the server on your PC is using a much heavier, more complex video encoder. So the downside is, it uses more PC resources. You have to have a beefier PC. You might have to lower the settings on your VR game to offset that. And of course, then now that you're not wired, you have to have a consideration of battery life again, but that's just how it is. This is my recommended way to play PC VR on this headset. It's definitely the best experience. So I know you're probably wondering how much this thing costs. The current Oculus Rift, the Rift S, which can't do anything on its own, you have to have a multi-$1,000 gaming PC to use it at all. It's $400 with trackers. The HTC Cosmos, $700. The Valve Index with trackers and controllers, $1,000. So now keep in mind, if you go out and buy a Tesla, right, it doesn't have a gas tank. Is Tesla giving you a discount because it doesn't have a gas tank? No, you're paying the same, if not more, for the high technology, right? So should you get a discount on the Quest 2 because it doesn't have to include these wired tracker cameras? Not necessarily, right? But thankfully, Quest 2, with its top-of-the-line screens, the whole Android system built in with the battery, it can play the top, most of the top VR titles without any additional hardware, and it's still physically lighter than the other ones. $299. So if you're a content creator or a Twitch streamer, here's what you need to know about capturing games on this headset. If you're playing games locally on the headset, like I'm playing Beat Saber running off the Android system on the headset, you have two options. You can stay fully wireless, and you can cast the video to something you can capture. Like maybe you have a Chromecast on an HDMI capture device. Or you can cast it to the browser, and you can capture your browser window in OBS, and that gives you video and sound. And it's motion stabilized. It's zoomed in a little bit to remove some of the high-frequency movements that might make viewers sick. Furthermore, if you accidentally leave your Guardian area and it starts showing your pass-through camera, that's not casted for your privacy, which is super cool. The other option for local games is to connect up a USB cable to your PC, and you can use a utility to capture the video from the headset. But you don't get audio this way, so it's not super great. For PC VR, whether you're using the Oculus Link cable for a direct connection or using virtual desktop, you can capture these games the same way you normally would. Steam VR games display a 2D companion window specifically for capturing or showing to people. And there are also tools for mirroring exactly what is being output to the Oculus if you want to capture that. There's also a really nice noise-canceling mic on board that just appears to Windows as a regular microphone sound device. So you can easily put that into OBS and capture that if you are using Oculus Link or if you're using virtual desktop, which is super great.
This is what the mic that is on board the headset sounds like. This is being recorded directly through the headset, through a USB cable onto my PC. So this is what my voice sounds like, captured by the onboard microphone on the Oculus Quest 2.
So finally, there's just a couple of cons I want to go over so you don't just immediately run out and buy this and say that I didn't tell you about these, okay? So the biggest one to me is there's no fast charging. So fast charging has been in phones for a while. I've never really cared so much about fast charging in phones, and the reason for that is my phone battery lasts all day. I charged it at night. It's charged in the morning. That's all I really care about. But for something like the Oculus Quest 2, where the battery lasts 2 hours, it'd be nice if once it's been used for 2 hours, I could charge it back up to 100% in an hour. Or maybe I could charge it up to 50% in half an hour or something like that. And considering it's an Android device with USB-C, I just kind of expected it. Most Android phones with USB-C support some type of fast charging, but this does not. This takes longer to charge up than it takes to discharge. If you play it for 2 hours and kill it, it's going to take more than 2 hours to charge it back up. So that's kind of a bummer. Another minor one, like I said, you can't use it in pitch black rooms. You got to have some amount of light on. I also brought up the fact that the screen, the contrast levels, the black level is not exactly as much as I would expect. I kind of wish it was an OLED for that case, but it's just not going to happen. And then to use it on PC, you have to have a ton of stuff running. You have to have the Oculus app has to be running to use the headset at all. And then if I want to play Half-Life Alyx on virtual desktop, we're talking about Steam has to be running, Steam VR has to be running, Half-Life Alyx has to be running, and the virtual desktop streamer app has to be running. So, I mean, it takes a ton of PC resources to play PC VR, so that's not exactly what I would recommend. But that's basically all I have to say about the Oculus Quest 2. If you have any questions about anything that I didn't answer in this video, feel free to message me or leave a comment or whatever, and I'll do my best to get to them. I think it's an incredible value for the money. For $299, there's nothing even in the same ballpark. If I had known that you could buy a $299 all-in-one Beat Saber machine, it's worth $299 for me to play Beat Saber, you know. So the fact that it does all this other stuff is really great icing on the cake. Half-Life Alyx has been a blast. So I would definitely recommend going out and getting one. Obviously, they're taking a little bit of a hit on the price. I can't imagine that they're actually able to manufacture and sell this thing with the R&D for $299 without losing money. They're probably losing money. That's probably why you have to log in with Facebook, so they can make up some of that loss by harvesting your personal data. I've heard that there's a jailbreak if you want to look into that to not have to log into Facebook. That's on you. Doesn't bother me. Anyway, that's all I got for today, guys.